What you gonna do, brother? Oh, yeah! Are you ready? Hey, yo.
And that's the bottom line.
Shut that control into a nosedive. Woo!
Well, all I can say is someone's been eating their vitamins and saying their prayers.
Life sucks, and then you die.
Strategy my Oklahoma ass.
You're next.
What? Oh, that's the Goldberg! Goldberg just feared the rock.
That's cheap, plain and simple.
Rest in peace.
Welcome to the JM Report. I'm your host, WrestleMania, coming to you from CSB Studios in Tampa, Florida, the birthplace of pro wrestling. And we're nearly at lockdown. Well, officially it's not called a lockdown, more like a stay at home or safe at home practice, for lack of a better term. As of last night, matter of fact, almost every or the majority of Florida counties have had their mayors and or governors pass this, let's just call it a law for now. At least for the next 2 weeks will be in effect. As far as Tampa goes, it goes into effect as of tonight, March 27th, 2020 at 10 p.m. So unless you're going out for medical supplies or groceries or, as they put it, essentials, you are not allowed in the streets. You'll be giving a warning, maybe only once, but you could be fined up to $500 and even 60 days in jail, or both. So let's not tempt fate here and assume that you can go out one block without being pulled over by state troopers or the sheriff's department and take a chance there. As far as Orlando goes, theirs went into effect last night, effective immediately, almost as soon as the bill was passed and signed in. It was immediately in play. And why is this relevant? Well, considering what's been going on around the world, and even though things are slowing down in China and seem to have a better grip of what's happening, I'm not saying it's anywhere near the end for them as far as the crisis goes, but it's a positive, and it's a step in the right direction as far as where we all want to be right now, and have whatever you consider to be normal life back again. Unfortunately for us Americans, not so much. And unfortunately, things have gone worse. But let's update everything else that's going on as far as the world of pro wrestling goes. And even late breaking news as of last night, which I'm half and half on it. I was surprised, at the same time not surprised, because common sense, you would think something like that would have brought up much sooner than it has. But let's focus on one thing at a time here as I continue speaking about these stay-at-home orders, as it were. WrestleMania was basically in the middle of being pre-taped for next weekend to stream pre-taped on the WWE Network and regular pay-per-view. If you want to pay that $60, $70 for the HD version of a pre-taped WrestleMania, go ahead. I mean, it's not the first time something like this happens as far as pre-taped goes. The first that comes to mind is SummerSlam 92. It was pre-taped, I believe, a day before it originally aired on pay-per-view. And it was a much longer show. Of course, the now infamous Virgil versus Nails match never aired. I never checked if it's a fully unedited version of SummerSlam 92 on a network. I never checked that. Now I got something to do later. I believe there was also a tag team match with the Bushwhackers against the Beverly Brothers, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. But there were a couple of matches cut out for time to fit in the pay-per-view format. Back then, you had to have been within, less than 3 hours, but at least 2 hours and 58 minutes, 59 minutes, giving enough time to set up for the replay. Things weren't digital back then. We could just simply move the cursor, rewind it back in less than a second, and replay it again for 11 p.m. But here we are. WrestleMania 36 is once again in jeopardy. And this was confirmed by Alpha, the Wild Samoan, over on his Facebook page, pointing out that some of his WXW students will be taking some part in WrestleMania. Didn't specify, but they have some kind of part. As I'm thinking, assisting in production, assisting with the talent. I don't believe they're going to have an actual match. Maybe if they're doing pre-tapes, as for oh my God, I forgot the pre-show. There was never any word of that happening, but who knows? There might be a couple of pre-tape matches for the pre-show, if there is going to be one. So if you want to argue about, like, oh, they're not going to pre-tape WrestleMania, they can't do that, they wouldn't do that, well, you take that up with Alpha and see who wins that argument. And that I mentioned that he's a Wild Samoan, Hall of Famer. So according to PW Insider, even with all these orders in play, especially in Orlando, the scheduling, now take this for what it's worth, the scheduling for the pre-taping of WrestleMania was scheduled to take place yesterday, Thursday, and today, Friday, March 27th. So whatever they got in last night, if you want to look at it from an official standpoint, that's all you can do. They have this stay home in order, and you're only supposed to be outside for essentials. So how will this work? Now, granted, if they get there early enough, I guess you'll spend the rest of the day at the center, and hopefully they got a lot of bunk beds or air mattresses or whatever to pass around, because there'll be a lot of people occupying, probably more so than a class in session at the PC. But I guess we'll see how this works out. Again, this came late. These are one of the stories that came out late last night. So what now? If this is taken more seriously than it has to be, as far as staying at home, and now I'm still speaking about Orlando. It's supposed to be a closed set. Only those with access for WWE is supposed to be there. Those matches that were taped yesterday may or may not include the Cena versus Fiend match. May not, or may include the Undertaker versus AJ Styles match that is now a Boneyard match, which I'll get to later. But the rest of the card seems to be in jeopardy. Could be. Again, this according to BW Insider. So, as of right now, we don't know. I've checked before I hit the record button. I checked for any updates. Nothing's available as of right now. Seemingly, people are panicking at the PC just to figure out what to do. Well, personally, there's no one to blame. I understand, at least I would like to, try to get everything in as much as possible as far as, okay, we can't be live anymore, so let's get all these pre-tapes in as soon and as fast as possible. Of course, with all these safety measures in play. No need to rush, no need to, essentially not to force too many people. I would imagine if you are being pre-taped for all of these matches, they can obviously redo spots that were botched or improvised, and that will take longer. So you can only imagine the pressure putting on yourself if, okay, and if you have the state of mind that I'd rather not be here because of what's happening, so let me focus, let me not make any mistakes so I can be home with my family and practice this stay-at-home order. Well, AJ Styles tried to clear up the air a little bit as far as what exactly is a boneyard match. Well, I personally thought it would be just another fancy word and way I try to pronounce two words at the same time. Try to say another, just basically another no DQ match, no count out, no holds barred. I wouldn't actually think it would be set in a boneyard, not even in an abandoned junkyard or a building that looks to be condemned. But, well, so what exactly is a boneyard match? According to Fightful, AJ Styles tried to explain a little bit what it is without giving too much away. And although there was concern with the term boneyard match, believing that under the circumstances, it probably won't be a suitable name. And, well, according to AJ Styles, if you were wondering what a boneyard match is, it's probably what you've been thinking and something else added onto it. AJ Styles and the WWE felt it necessary to tone back on something that brings death to mind. But according to Styles, he and The Undertaker will have an unsanctioned brawl in the graveyard. So again, very similar to previous no DQ concept matches, just a different setting. So when we discussed about WrestleMania being filmed in different locations, this might be one of them. So I doubt they'll be literally outside in the world picking a random boneyard, if you will, or graveyard. Hence why the change in name so slightly from graveyard to boneyard, and actually have a match for a few minutes, heavily edited, of course. So I'm guessing, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I'm guessing this is another set that was more than likely prepared way in advance, especially after all of this craziness began, and brought it indoors as opposed to at Raymond James Stadium. So according to Styles, it's a combination of things you thought it was. Most likely it's going to be very different. I don't want to give anything away. I want you guys to enjoy this. Because of the circumstances, I'm so glad my opponent is The Undertaker, because it's an opportunity to have a different match. And you know what? I agree with that, considering the types of opponents that AJ Styles has had in the past, not only in WWE, but elsewhere in New Japan and Impact. Taker's a whole different animal when it comes to in-ring performing and talent. Not that Styles can't keep up or match up or go toe-to-toe with The Undertaker. But when I first heard this idea, when it was still a rumor, I would say back in February, between January and February, I was all in, like, yeah, let's do this. Something different. Especially, I have more appreciation for matches that not so much that you didn't think about happening, or I tend now to avoid, quote, dream matches now. But to not have, or to not think that a match between Taker and Styles could not happen, and then poof, they start working on it. They start having angles and storylines for it. I was in a position like, oh yeah, I didn't even think about this. Styles and Taker, I'm sure I have in the past, but considering how storylines have been going for the past couple of years, like they probably won't even go there. Sometimes they don't even realize what they have. When it comes to Mania, they they deliver 9 times out of 10. Unlike Shaft, who delivers 10 out of 10, but that's a whole different story. So, what else is going on? I mentioned changes coming up for Mania. Probably the biggest one of them all came, again, late last night. I would say I probably first read the report around 11 p.m. Eastern. And the report came out less than an hour prior to that. So, according to the pro wrestling sheet, Roman Reigns is out of his Universal Championship match versus Goldberg. Not due to injury, not due to backstage bullshit. Let's be honest here. Nothing to do with the other. But Roman Reigns himself requested to be removed from his WrestleMania 36 match due to the concerns that's happening right now in the world. And this is what I was mentioning earlier. This wasn't thought of before. I mean, there was the first live SmackDown. And then the SmackDown episode where there was the contract signing. Because the first SmackDown Live episode in the empty arena, quote unquote, had Roman Reigns cut a promo. Last week was the contract signing between he and Goldberg. So, not to point fingers or place any blame, I mean, the reasons given are very understandable, but why wasn't this brought up sooner? To give more than enough time to make the changes necessary now moving forward. And for all we know, there may not even be a Universal Championship match, but don't hold me to that. Tonight is SmackDown. Let's see how they're going to explain this. But okay, I apologize, I'm stalling. But as far as why Roman Reigns has been removed, well, his immune system is compromised due to not one but 2 battles with leukemia in its past. Although he's in remissions now, but again, his immune system is not what it used to be, at least not for someone, a man of his age. And he didn't want to take a chance with his health, which is beyond understandable. I'm willing to bet anything that there was at least one person that placed their hands to their forehead or cupped their mouths and realized, that's right. Again, I'm taking it as one of those heat of the moments things. You're excited. You're finding solutions to keep the show going. And honestly, I can appreciate that. Hell, sometimes when you plan something big, a party, a wedding, graduation, anything that big of a celebration that more than likely is going to involve many people, you tend to forget the little details. Granted, this is a huge detail, and it just changes everything, at least as far as that match goes. So Roman Reigns is out. WWE is said to have honored the request and replaced Roman Reigns in the match. This is less than 12 hours ago that this news broke. I'm not sure if SmackDown Live tonight. No, you know what? It's not supposed to be. It's not supposed to be because they're trying to tape everything in order as much as possible, with the exception of Mania, which obviously came first. So it's SmackDown had to have been pre-taped earlier in the week. That way no one's confused. You just follow the story. Basically, the story is going to be told from their point of view. It's going to be told much quicker instead of spread out in a few weeks. And tell the story within a matter of hours, one day into another. So NXT was pre-taped as we saw this past week, and it ended with Killer Cross making his debut via promo. And I gotta say, it looks like NXT had the most matches in the show for the past 2 weeks. So I guess finally giving some love to NXT this week as versus the previous week, where there were no matches whatsoever, just a bunch of video packages and highlights leading up to what should have been NXT TakeOver Tampa, which is now completely canceled. However, Triple H announced this week on NXT that those matches scheduled for NXT TakeOver will now take place on NXT television. And those matches, not that he said this, but those matches will be pre-taped as well and eventually spread out for the next 2 to 3 weeks. So for those who are freaking out or wondering or whatnot, this is an old school concept. This has been done before, especially by WWE. For those who don't know or remember, there were these 2 weekend shows called Wrestling Challenge and Superstars of Wrestling. In New York, they used to air on Channel 5 before it became Fox. Yeah, that long ago. And those were pre-taped either during that same week and will be sent out to the local affiliates to be aired on television. Sent out by physical tapes, mind you. Sometimes they were pre-taped 2-3 weeks ahead of time and again sent out, but they still were able to maintain storylines. Not as complicated as today, but if you look back and think about it, that's an amazing feat back then. Now it's much more simpler, at least as far as editing and sending your stuff out digitally. Hell, if you notice that it happened often, but you would notice if you go back and watch some of these old episodes of Wrestling Challenge and Superstars of Wrestling, not all the matches took place in the same arena. The giveaway usually was not announcing where they were. Sometimes they'll sneak in one match where it didn't take place in the same arena, even if they announced it at the top of the hour, because after that they weren't mentioning it again. So again, this is nothing new. Hell, Impact Wrestling, TNA, whatever you want to call them, they've been doing this thing for years, and they still are. Pre-tape a show weeks in advance and air them in order. So kudos to the people, staff, and the crew of WWE video, audio, and production to work as hard as they are to get this off the ground to meet deadlines. So my hat goes off to them, and I'm literally wearing a hat right now. But other changes are expected, and they broke during the week as part of the 6-pack challenge match for the SmackDown Women's Championship. Dana Brooke has been removed. And it's when I first read this, I was curious to know why. This time of year, you have to appreciate a little bit, if any, that anyone in WWE's talent roster can make an appearance on Mania, because if you're not making too much leading to it or after, something's wrong. In the case of Dana Brooke, not due to injury, not due to be written off, and sure as hell it's not anything to do with the comments on social media about, she never deserved it, why was she there in the first place, blah, 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 blah. I'll refrain from using my personal judgments and comments now. But her, Dana Brooke, she, along with Rey Mysterio, have been under self-quarantine. Wade Keller opened this up earlier in the week, I should say, that there is yet another possible third talent member to be in self-quarantine. Keller said he didn't see this person's name published, so out of respect for them, he wouldn't reveal the identity of the third person in self-quarantine. But Keller did share, including in confirming these names were only quarantined and didn't test positive, and that the third person in question was not on the WrestleMania match card anyway. So you can take that for what it's worth. Probably has something to do with adding, seemingly out of nowhere, earlier, matter of fact, this past week on Raw, which was the last live event from the PC on USA Network, and I was even left scratching my head. Wait, what? That Andrade will team up with Angel Garza to take on the Street Profits for the Raw Tag Team titles. Okay, that's different, a little bit out of left field. I mean, who's to say that that match would have been yet another rematch between Garza and Andrade versus Rey Mysterio and Carrillo? Again. But it sucks that Dana Brooke cannot be available and can't make it to WrestleMania. Whether she was going to win or not is irrelevant, but the fact, again, giving the opportunity, hey, here's Mania, here's your chance to shine, go for it, girl. Let's take a swing over at AEW, who had yet another empty arena match this week on Dynamite. Had a confrontation between Matt Hardy and Chris Jericho. So more than likely that's going to lead to something big. Also the in-ring debut of Brody Lee. And Jack Swagger had a match versus Chico Adams. Shout out to Chico Adams, man. Trying to stay busy in this crazy time, and still available in Florida, AEW is, and there's a lot of talent out here that's looking to be booked. What I found interesting was, so Chico performed for AEW on Wednesday. I mentioned earlier about Alpha confirming the pre-tapes for WrestleMania, and that had some sent out some of his WXW students to assist in said pre-tapes. And one of them is Chico Adams. For those who are not familiar with Chico Adams, he's wrestled for NXT here and there. He's a well-known and well-respected talent out here in Florida. So I find it very curious, even if it was a one-off, and no details of it came out unless you asked the man himself. But no details came out as far as how is this possible. He just worked for AEW, the rival to WWE. Just, let's not kid ourselves. But Chico Adams wrestles for AEW one day, and literally the next day is reporting to Orlando to work for behind the scenes for WrestleMania for the WWE. Again, unless there was no contract involved, Chico Adams has done absolutely nothing wrong. Maybe there were some agreements, and this happened before. It doesn't happen often, but it's happened before. One time it shows one day here, and then not literally the next, but maybe a week or two later is somewhere else. But again, if there's no contract, everyone is fine, so chillax. Here's something that I found very interesting, and I even pointed it out on my social media pages. A hashtag lesson learned that WWE took a page out of AEW's book and changed their hard camera position. Instead of facing empty seats, which were removed, by the way, this week, and were replaced by lightings and a huge black curtain or black tarp surrounding the ring and the staging area. So I made that concept. I made that comment, and I took a screenshot when Lesnar and Heyman opened up Raw, and a hard camera. I didn't post it till after the fact, because after Lesnar and Heyman was it another replay of a WrestleMania match. No, I'm sorry, of the Royal Rumble match between Lesnar, Seth Rollins, and John Cena from 2015, I believe it was. Man, how time has changed. So I had to wait till the end of that match to go back to Raw, who only had one match this week, by the way, to see if for sure, to confirm that the hard camera was indeed moved to have, just like AEW did last week, the staging and the ramp in the background instead of empty seats. And sure enough, it was confirmed. And I posted on my Facebook page, Instagram, and Twitter. So, of course, there's always one unintelligent person, let's say, that doesn't get sarcasm and believes that whomever's posting a comment usually doesn't know what they're talking about. Yes, I'm fully aware that Ring of Honor has done this before. New Japan has done it before. It's been done before. One of the top 5, let's say, rules or go-to concepts in pro wrestling is copy what the other guy's doing, or let's do something we used to do because it works. So don't try to school me, son, that, oh, well, the new Ring of Honor did this and New Japan and so on and so forth. So what lessons being learned? Sir, I replied, and I'm not giving this person the benefit of the doubt. I'm sure as hell I'm not going to even mention this person's name. But it's called sarcasm. That still exists in this world, despite what's happening. Also, I looked this person up. He's from Italy. And very young looking. So you must be a recent fan, and I would say a recent fan as maybe the last 10 years or so, and that's being nice. I'm glad you watch other wrestling companies besides WWE. I don't know why or how this made you jump right into defense mode. But look up on your history. Hell, study and learn your history in pro wrestling before you go out thinking you're schooling someone, not realizing that the person you're trying to school more than likely knows more than you ever could. But you know what? Thanks for the number. Thanks for even acknowledging my post and commenting, because I appreciate that. Moving on. Even Tony Khan poked fun at this. He took to Twitter this week, adding a GIF or a short video from the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie where you see the Green Goblin, well, what wasn't Goblin yet, but it was William Dafoe as Norman Osborn. And the video, you hear him saying, you know, I'm something of a scientist myself. And he posted a comment in caps, they moved the hard cam. Actually, that was Brian Alvarez with the comment, they moved the hard cam, but he replied to Tony Khan's little video there. Khan, Cody Rhodes, anybody from the Elite never came out to say, we're being original. This was idea. Now they're stealing. Like, no. Even he's acknowledging Tony Khan. I'm like, hey, okay, lesson learned. You learned your lesson. Took a week, but you learned your lesson. So if you have an issue with me pointing out WWE's flaws, at least for 1 week, and then you have AEW's president, Tony Khan, basically doing and saying the same thing, go ahead and send them your hate comments. And let's see you not get verbally shredded because you think he doesn't know what he's talking about. Oh, he's taking a shot at WWE at this time. What's going on? What? Relax. There are more important things to discuss, more important things to argue about. This is sure as hell ain't one of them. Switching gears and to line up the mood a little bit, we finally have a better idea and understanding what exactly is kayfabe or hashtag kayfabe on Kickstarter, brought to you by Lita. Wow, I almost said Lydia. By Lita, Gail Kim, and Christy Hemme. All three were on Lillian Garcia's Chasing Glory podcast and discussed a lot more detail as far as what exactly can we expect from this upcoming project / concept from all three women. According to Amy Duman, or Lita, basically sharing their stories, sharing their paths, their journeys to become who they are today and life after being in front of the cameras, being in front of the live audience and arenas for so many years. Just a quick quote from Lita here. We had kept a secret for so long, and it was to protect the integrity of the vision. And we knew we could ultimately just trust each other and hash out everything and talk about things when we were feeling strong, weak, bold, scared. Like all those things we knew we could trust each other with. And we didn't want to spread that and get other people's, interpretations. What I've learned since, the main thing that I've learned, and that is very ironic because what we talked about, working the three of us together, is where we are stronger together. So basically, Lita's just saying that we have stories to tell. And in case one couldn't do it on their own, feeling certain emotions that, if I say this about somebody or a situation, and again, it's all one-sided from their point of view, there'll be hesitation and more than likely get not the proper feedback you would expect. So have a buddy or two to back you up, especially if they're aware of the situation and the story that you're talking about. You'll be in good hands. And no, that's not a cheap plug for anything. WWE Network is no longer available in about 20 countries due to contractual obligations. Well, according to their very own WWE website, the reasons are as follows. Take this for what it's worth. But WWE Network will no longer be available in these countries until further notice due to the contractual obligations with OSN. OSN is the television company that broadcasts into 24 countries across the Middle East and North Africa. And there are a lot from Kuwait to Jordan, Egypt, Iraq, Yemen, Morocco, Libya, Tanzania, Syria, Morocco. There's a lot of places that have lost the WWE Network and now will not have they won't be able to watch WrestleMania. And well, needless to say, that's a huge financial loss. I don't have the numbers in front of me as far as how many subscribers they had in those territories, but I'm sure it was reasonable, if not better, numbers. And it's gone. One individual, I would assume who was a fan, tweeted out at Ask WWE Network saying, I have a problem watching older Raw episodes. A lot are locked, and I have a subscription, but it's showing me this message. And he took a screenshot, and it's one of the Raw is War episodes that has Stone Cold Steve Austin in the middle of the ring cutting a promo. And sure enough, it says right smack in the middle on Austin's face, you need to subscribe to watch. Well, first of all, there's a typo here, and I read it word for word as far as the screenshot goes from the network website. You need to be subscribed to watch this video. Click here to start your free month. And there was a reply from Ask WWE Network. Hi, thank you for reaching out. Our sincerest apologies for the inconvenience. The WWE Network is no longer available in your territory until further notice. For more information, you may go here to help.wwe.com/answer/details. Straight to the point, but leaving out the details about contract or obligations. So what exactly were there? No one knows. But again, at least there was a statement from WWE. Doesn't soothe any woes, but at least they said something. And apparently they said a lot. The story itself was recently told, but as far as where it came from and what it's about, it was a few years ago. But Arn Anderson was very upset talking back about WrestleMania 31. Sting made his only WrestleMania match. Well, he had his one and only WrestleMania match. In this case, against Triple H. And even I was done with the whole concept of WWE versus WCW, especially at this point in time. You guys really need to move on. You won the war and then some. It's over. Enough. But because Sting is not an original idea or concept created by WWE, let's face it, if you think otherwise, you need to get out more. Maybe not now, but when the ordeal and crisis is over, get out a lot more to make up for time that you can't go out now. But Arn Anderson took to Twitter and said, this week, Arn talks about WrestleMania 31, referring to his podcast, that is. And what could have been with Sting, and what could have been with Sting. Were you happy to see Sting finally at WrestleMania? Do you agree this was 15 years too late? Was it a final FU to WCW? Well, was it happy to see Sting in Mania finally? Yeah. Was it 15 years too late? Hell yeah. Was it a final FU to WCW? Hell yeah. So yeah. Hell yeah is across the board. And what really capped it all off and chapped my ass about it, and you can listen to this particular episode of Arn Anderson talking about WrestleMania 31 in its entirety over at the Megaphone. He shares the story, and Chris Jericho backed this up on his Talk is Jericho, that Vince, along with others, were telling the commentators the day of WrestleMania 31 and during the match itself with Sting and Triple H to trash talk and to talk down Sting as much as possible. They were even given certain lines to say during the live broadcast. And I'm not surprised. And yet someone else tries to school me when I mentioned this, when I commented. I'm like, is really anybody surprised about this? You shouldn't be surprised. And then someone tries to chime in, or someone did chime in and said, oh, you see, well, the fact was, the following year, Triple H was supposed to wrestle The Rock, and Sting wasn't confirmed to be at that WrestleMania, so they had to go here and do it now and have it. Like, what the hell are you talking about? What does looking a year into the future have to do with booking a year prior? And because you say or you think or you were told or Sting wasn't confirmed for a year later, when things can change, and that's why he didn't go over? Okay, you know what? You go ahead and keep your head nice and warm up your ass. But clearly you have no clue what the hell you're talking about. One has nothing to do with the other. Even by the slightest degree, that was the reason. Still no excuse to have it booked the way it was. Under those concepts that, it's WWE versus WCW again. I'll admit, I fanboy out, or whatever you want to call it, when DX and the NWO showed up. Because finally, decades after the fact, everybody's a little bit older, but hey, most of them can still go. And finally had those rivalries, those faction rivalries go at each other. What didn't make sense, and yes, Sting was part of the NWO, but that was NWO Wolfpack. So once that split again, Sting was on his own, back to the black and white face paint. But he never joined Hollywood Hogan. He never joined Scott Hall. It was just Wolfpack with Kevin Nash only. And if those creative minds at WWE were, in fact, creative, they would have gone with the red and black Wolfpack NWO version. Because even they merged in WCW. So try to keep a little bit of continuity here. Sting had a little detail in his face paint by adding red streaks on his cheeks. At least he would have represented it. Hell, matter of fact, he did represent the Wolfpack a lot more than what we ended up getting. But because Triple H and Rock were confirmed for a follow, which by the way never happened, so goes to show where the hell you get your source from. Still no excuse. So yeah, go ahead, make sure you tuck in your ears and stick your head right back up your ass and shut the hell up. Woosah. Oh, by the way, Teddy Hart got arrested again, so screw him. Not even going to mention why. He's arrested. Fucking idiot. There might be some good news, depending how it all works out. But for independent contractors that have lost their jobs due to what's happening right now, can still receive full salaries up to 4 months. According to the administration, it was announced that aid will be coming for those that are losing their jobs due to the pandemic. Rather than just employees, independent contractors will also be eligible. Considering pro wrestlers are contractors rather than employees, this is a major factor. And a lot of them rely on these bookings. Hell, do you realize how many events were canceled for the upcoming WrestleMania week that was supposed to happen in Tampa, and how many wrestlers were going to have not one but several events, including WrestleCon that's now gone? That's a lot of income. Hell, the bigger picture would have been the city of Tampa getting a huge income from international tourism. All that is gone. So according to this guy, the average worker who has lost his or her job will receive 100% of their salary for up to 4 months. Unlike normal unemployment benefits, independent contractors and self-employment will be eligible. All of this was passed, by the way. There might be, would not surprise me because it's government we're talking about, but would not surprise me, and there are reports that some want to hold it up. Like, no, not just yet. We'll see where things are going. We'll see how things turn out before we pass out all this money, which is about $2 trillion, by the way. And not everyone's going to get the hell. I don't even know if I'm going to get a check like this. I don't know exactly the details. They mentioned, yeah, if you got a household, you make this amount of money or less, you get this amount and blah, blah, blah. Well, I think I mentioned this last week. I don't have a family. I don't have a son. I don't have a daughter. All I have right now are 2 dogs that I'm taking care of. Though a part of a much bigger family of dogs. But time, age, and sicknesses, unfortunately, I will lose all of them throughout the years. But I'm down to the mother and a daughter of the dog family, not human mother and daughter. I'm doing everything I can to take care of them, everything I can to feed them, bathe them, make sure they're okay, make sure they got their little bit of space and freedom for themselves. And that's it. That's as far as I can take it. They have a shelter, they have a home, have beds, clothing. So if the government's going to look at exactly those little details, like, wait a minute, he's just taking care of dogs? Maybe not the full $1,200 check. Give him about a few bucks for at least for that week. He can stack up on canned dog food or whatever. So again, I'm not bringing it down. I'm not mocking. I just don't know where I'll fit in the podium, so to speak. So we'll see. And if I'm still able to come out here to the studios to record my further JM reports, then I'll definitely bring you up to date on that. And these checks, by the way, they won't go out to the end of the month. I'm sorry, That was something else I'm thinking of. These checks won't go out for at least another couple of weeks. So let's wait and see what happens. But speaking of money, and this is quite insightful. Vince McMahon was trying to, or actually he did sell a lot of his stock from WWE. According to the recent SEC filing, SEC, McMahon is parting with some of his stake in WWE through Morgan Stanley in an effort to provide more liquidity for the company during this outbreak that's going on. The filing itself indicates that McMahon has entered into a variable, prepaid forward contract that covers around 3.5 million shares of Class B common stock. This contract would allow McMahon to maintain voting and divine rights in the stock, as well as price appreciation during and after the contract. According to the report, this is no doubt an effort to help offset some of the losses that WWE will have to suffer, in most part because of this crisis that's going on, with the XFL shutting down its season early and tons of WWE shows, including WrestleMania 36, and was forced to be held with no audience presence. McMahon now has to find other ways to make sure everyone in the company is taken care of, and it looks like as if he has. Well, at least I can say for the man that he's trying to look out for his people, his talent, his employees, his crew, production team, everyone. Sometimes you got to take a hit, you know? Sometimes you got to do what you have to. It will hurt your pockets, but you know what? At the end of the day, it's the right thing to do. So before I wrap up here, I was going to announce the full lineup for WrestleMania 36 as it stands now, but as I'm looking, apparently while I was here, breaking news, Bobby Lashley is now out of WrestleMania, as he has reportedly been self-quarantined ahead of his match. So more than likely that wasn't taped. Goldberg's new opponent is revealed, but I'm not going to mention it here. No, I don't even want to know. Also, another match is in jeopardy. There's a champion that does not work WrestleMania, and that's just reading the headline. It has spoiler in parentheses, so I'm not going to open up that link to mention it here. So, which champion? Which title is not being defended? So if Goldberg has a new opponent, then it's not that title, it's not that match. So what other championship match is now out of WrestleMania and not happening? It may still happen. The challenger, whoever it would have been, but it won't be for the title, obviously. It'll just be a different opponent, and it won't be the champion either. So, listen, folks, other than maybe now the only source of income besides what's supposed to be their guaranteed contracts, talent in WWE probably more than likely relying on the shop zone, WWE shop, and getting their merchandise check in the mail, or if they got direct deposit, whatever. But it's just a lot to take in. There are a lot of changes. So everyone's being affected financially across the board. Granted, I believe those up high in the food chain that never given back their fair share, as they say, hey, don't forget about the little people. Spread the love, as they say, share the wealth, whatever. They could look at it or take it as, as their own karma right now. So be it. Unfortunately, the rest of us are suffering as well. So in comparison, financially, it might not be that big of a blow, but not all of us are going to recover, again, financially. So with that said, I'm noticing I'm kind of back to my original concepts of having an hour or so episodes. There's not much going on, and I realize there are other stories I'm leaving out, but considering not all of it's being affected by what's happening, you'd be surprised. So I choose not to share those stories, but try to keep up to date with everyone as entertaining as I can be, and I apologize if I come out otherwise. But these are hard times, folks. Let's do our part by not spreading, you can spread the love all you want in different ways, but unfortunately you can't do it physically today or for the next 2 weeks if you're living out in my county or anywhere near the city of Tampa. So I'm personally holding on that this will end real soon. There's a good chance it can be if China can get things more or less under control on their side, that there's a chance that they can share some of that information, some of that intel over here and the rest of the world to get their countries back in order, to go back to normal life, whatever it means to you, and we can move on. Again, my thoughts and prayers go out to the families that have someone, a loved one, that's affected by this. My prayers and condolences if you have lost someone because of this. It's tough times now. And I really hope that on the other end of the spectrum that people can still move on with life and celebrating birthdays, anniversaries, and so forth. So it's not the end for everybody. It's just that life has slowed down a little bit and we all got to go through it. But let's hang in there and be strong, and we'll see this to the end. So until next time, everyone, be safe, be good, stay home to be safe, and talk to you next time.
Today, I found the strength to open my eyes, leave it all behind. So open your mind.